welcome everybody. My name is Heather Dunsweiler, and I am the data manager at the YWCA Childcare Resource and Referral, and I am also the chair of the Lucas County Early Childhood Coordinating Committee, or EC3. And we are so excited to have everybody here today for our 4th annual Education Forum, 2nd virtual one. Hopefully next year we can all be back in person. I don't know about all of you, but I can only take so much of a computer screen. So hopefully next year we can all be back together, but we're super excited. I know we've got a lot of people from all around on today. So without further ado, a few housekeeping things. Make sure that you guys sign into the chat each time. So we've got our keynote this morning. So go ahead and make sure you sign in first and last name and your agency. That way, those of you that are what's the best word? Requesting CEUs. That way we can make sure that everything is in line for that. The other thing we do need to have you do is fill out the evaluation. You only need to fill out the parts of the evaluation for the sessions that you attend. So our morning after the keynote, you'll have the opportunity to choose one of the 2 breakout sessions, and then the same thing for the afternoon breakout. So you only need to fill out the ones that you were there. If you haven't found the evaluation yet, on the website where the interactive agenda is, there's another button right up there in that right-hand corner that says evaluation, and you can go right there to fill it in. I'm sure towards the end of the keynote, maybe we can put it in the chat box as well. So those are just a few little things as we go. The chat is there, so please, feel free to ask questions, things like that. So now, without further ado, I would like to welcome and thank Denise Smith from Owens Community College for being here with us today. Owens is our on-site sponsor. So since they're our on-site sponsor, they're our Zoom sponsor as well. So thank you, Denise.
Well, thank you so much. First, I have to apologize. My light is so bad here because I was not on campus today, but this was so important that I wanted to take a minute to stop in and first thank all of you for letting us host, but also to say how important we all find both early childhood education and the education of early childhood educators, which is a lot to say, actually. My mother was a kindergarten teacher and then a 3rd grade teacher. So education has always been incredibly important. In fact, I always told her I wasn't going to be a teacher, and then I ended up in education, some of which was teaching teachers. That you can't get away from how you're raised, I guess. So it has always been very important in my household. And I think it continues to be more important today as we have an ever-changing educational system. So I am just so thankful that you allow Owens to be a part of this. And I hope that you have a wonderful day today.
Gotta find my mute. Sorry. Thank you, Denise. And like I said, thank you so much to Owens for being our Zoom sponsor. And hopefully we can continue this partnership next year and be back on campus again. I also want to shout out to CareSource because they were our CEU sponsor. They sponsored the full application fee for the CEUs today. So just couldn't do it without you guys. So without further ado, the second time around here, I'm going to turn it over to Elisa and Chuck Hage to welcome us with a little bit of music.
Good morning. We're so excited to be able to be with you this morning and to get the morning started in a really exciting and movement-filled kind of way. So welcome. I'm Elisa Huss-Hage, and I am here with my husband, Chuck. We call ourselves Just Kidding Around, and we've been training teachers and singing songs with families for many, many years. So we're going to start this morning by welcoming you and singing a song.
This is a song that Jim Gill, our friend, wrote about all of us that are in Ohio. It's a great song to take us through all the emotions you're going to go through today. Enjoy.
Make sure you're moving and singing along wherever you might be, because that's the fun of it.
In the great state of Ohio, from Cincinnati to Toledo, we never simply say hello. We sing, oh hey, oh hi,
Sing
hello,
along, oh hey, oh hi, hello. Oh, hey, oh, hi, hello. Oh, hey, oh, hi, oh, hey, oh, hi, hello.
When we're sad and teary-eyed, we sing it even as we cry. Oh, hey, hey, oh, hi, hello. Oh, hey, oh, hi, hello. Oh, hey, oh, hi, oh, hey, oh, hi, hello. Sure, we'll sing it when we're sad. We'll sing it even when we're mad. Oh, hey, oh, hi, hello. Oh, hey, oh, hi, hello. Oh, hey, oh, hi, oh, hey, oh, hi, hello. When we're at the library, we always sing it quietly. Oh, hey, oh, hi, hello. Oh, hey, oh, hi, hello. Oh, hey, oh, hi, oh, hey, oh, hi, hello. When we're in a great big crowd, you know we sing it really loud. Oh, hey, oh, hi, oh, oh, hey, oh, hi, oh. Oh, hey, oh, hi, oh, hey, oh, hi, hello. Underwater in the swimming pool, it really sounds unusual. Oh, hey, oh, hi, hello. Oh, hey, oh, hi, hello. Oh, hey, oh, hi, oh, hey, oh, hi, hello. There you
Round of
go.
applause.
Yeah. All right. Well, we don't have the apparatus to do our usual physical stuff. So we're going to go with the inspirational. Go ahead. You can talk about that.
Yeah, so this morning we're going to sing a song called The Kindergarten Wall, which, as we all know in the profession that we have, the kindergarten wall is more than just the kindergarten wall. It's the child care center wall. It's the early Head Start classroom. It's the home visitors. It's the social workers, all of us in this community that we are who support young children and their families. So you're all familiar with the poem by Robert Fulghum. And I think it would be very appropriate today that we sing this song in honor of our colleague, Paul Smansky, who has given so much and been a champion for our community. So if you're familiar with this poem, which I suspect you all are, the words will be very familiar to all of you. So please join us as we're singing and just keep Paul in your heart and his family and the Catholic Club family close as we're really celebrating the important work that we all do and that Paul has been such a beautiful example for all of us.
John McCutcheon took this beautiful poem and turned it into a great song called The Kindergarten Wall. When I was a little kid, not so long ago, I had to learn a lot of stuff. I didn't even know how to dress myself and tie my shoes, how to skip a rope, how to smile for a picture without looking like a dope. Remember school pictures? Of all the things I learned, my favorite of them all was a little poem hanging on that child care center wall. Oh, all you learn here, remember this the best. Don't hurt each other and clean up your mess. Take a nap every day, wash before you eat. Hold hands, stick together, look before you cross the street. Remember the seed in the little paper cup. First the root goes down and then the plant grows up. Well, it was first, second, third grade, fourth grade too, where I had to learn the big things that big kids do. How to add, subtract, and multiply, read and write and play, how to sit in that little uncomfortable desk for nearly half a day. Of all the things they taught me, of all the big and small, my favorite was that poem on that child care center wall.
Of all you learn here, remember this the best. Don't hurt each other and clean up your mess. Take a nap every day, wash before you eat. Hold hands, stick together, look before you cross the streets. Remember the seed in the little paper cup. First the root goes down and then the plants grow up. Well, lately I've been worried to look around and see an awful lot of grown-ups acting foolish as can be. I know there's lots of things to know I haven't mastered yet. Still, it seems there's real important stuff that grown-ups soon forget. I think we'd all be better off if we would just recall a little poem hanging on that child care center wall. Of all you learn here, remember this the best. Don't hurt each other and clean up your mess. Take a nap every day, wash before you eat. Hold hands, stick together, look before you cross the street. Remember the seed in the little paper cup. First the root goes down and then the plant grows up. Yay! So Robert has also written a lot of other things. He's a profound author, and he also shares some other insight that we're going to leave you with today before we hand it off to my colleague and friend, John Jones, as he's going to share with us about comprehensive early childhood. So, in this world that we're living and the challenges that we have, COVID, somebody mentioned, like we're just exhausted with Zoom and it's just so hard to be together and for each other. And really, it's more important now than ever that we do that. So we're just going to leave you with last words that are also Robert's. He says, be aware of wonder. Live a balanced life. Learn some and think some and draw and paint and sing and dance and play and work some every day. So with that, have a great day. We've got so many wonderful people who are presenting today and who have wonderful wisdom and insight to share to fill us all back up. So we're ready to go back out there and do all that we can do to support the children and families of our community. So thanks for letting us be here with you today.
Thanks for all your hard work. Have a great day, you guys.
Thank you so much, Chuck and Elisa. That's a great way to get us started, get us in the mood for this early childhood, Day of Early Childhood Education.
Good morning, everyone. I have the honor and privilege of introducing Reverend John Jones. Reverend Jones has been involved in the effort to expand access to high-quality early childhood experiences for all children in our community for the past several years, and most recently was named the president of Hope Toledo, which I'm sure he will give a more eloquent description of when he begins. But many of you know Hope Toledo for both its initiatives to provide access to college for high school students and their parents, as well as the umbrella for the pre-K project in our community. So it's a very exciting moment in Toledo and Lucas County to be able to provide these early care and education experiences to more children, and especially those who have limited access to these programs. So Reverend Jones is going to talk with us about Hope Toledo, the demonstration project that has started this fall, and what we hope to achieve in our community for all young children and their families, and for our workforce, which is also a critically important piece of all of this work, and has certainly been highlighted during the pandemic, how important all of you are in providing services and supports to children and families. So I'd like to introduce my friend and colleague, Reverend John Jones.
Thank you, Dr. Handon. I hope everybody can hear me pretty good. How exciting to start the day off with you all this morning on what looked like was going to be a dreary Friday morning. The sun's trying to peek out just a little bit if you guys got a window access somewhere. So we can't be more, I couldn't be more excited to be here and to join you. And so Dr. Handon, thank you for that introduction. And for those of you that don't know, and I know all of you do know, Christy Handon is one of Toledo's best, and the work that they're doing there with the Lucas County Family Council, Early Head Start, and so many different things is outstanding. So I'm thrilled that I could be here and join. So I just want to give a couple quick shout outs so I don't forget it before I end. A big thanks to Heather over at the YW for two things. One, coordinating all of this stuff, and then two, for staying on top of me, because I probably would have forgot half the stuff if she hadn't have bugged me for a few different things, as we all know how this goes. So I'm really excited for the invite. And then the second shout out is to Chuck and Elisa Hayes. Wow, what a way to start the morning, right? I didn't think I'd be up here clapping on beat. A little hard for me early in the morning, but we were able to do that. So I'm thrilled to be able to work with her, and you'll hear me talk about that just a little bit here today. But then finally, just a big shout out to each of you, and I'll talk through this during this short little share time today, but a huge shout out to each and every one of you. Dr. Handon explained that I've been sitting in this seat, quote, at Hope Toledo for about a year. Literally yesterday, a year ago, was the day that Hope Toledo made the announcement that I was sitting in this seat. But we've been sitting around the table with early childhood educators, with providers, with other partners, probably for about 2 years now. And quite literally, when I first walked in that room, I walked in silent so that I could listen and be able to learn. I do not come into the space to say, hey, I got this all figured out. I am not an early childhood educator. I've spent most of my time in life in the business world or the nonprofit world. I am fortunate because I do believe that God does all things on purpose. And so because I have that background and backdrop, I do think it allows me to look at this from a little bit of a different lens while still understanding the work that is being done, has been done, needs to be done. And so I'm saying all of this to preface it. You'll hear me say this a couple times today, but I am so grateful to be in a room and be considered part of this early childhood education sector. You guys, ladies, excuse me, all of you, and I meant guys in a very slang way, but you all are like the best of the best. And watching the work that you all do every single day to take care of our children, to prepare teachers, to teach our children, to, build this space in our community. I can't say thank you enough for what you've done and what you continue to do every single day. So I wanted to make sure I got that out the way. I'm going to say it again, but in case I didn't say it that way, I got it out the way so I could say it in that way up top. What I want to do a little bit today is to really talk about what would it look like for us to really engage in building out this comprehensive community-based approach to early childhood education and care here in our city. And so there's, again, so many of you that have been doing this work for a really long time. And again, as I've listened, I've heard people share with me, well, we did this back 10 years ago, and we did this back 15 years ago, and we tried to do this previously. And so I've heard some of the fits and starts. I've heard some of the great things that have been able to maintain. And I've heard some of the stuff that sort of went by the wayside and didn't go exactly how everybody wanted it to. And so part of what I'll talk to today is going to be how we build that collaborative approach and continue to foster that inside of our community, and then touch on some other strategies. So hopefully this is engaging. I do want this to be as, how shall I say this, as interactive as possible. So I'm going to ask you to do a few things. And so let me just test out a couple things real quick. When I share my screen, which I will in a minute. I'm going to ask you to go up into the top bar of your screen and see if you can find a little button that says annotate. And if you can, we're going to walk our way through that because I want you to sort of, on a few different slides that I'll pop up, I'll ask you to annotate. So we'll do a little exercise in just a second when I get there. And I think that's enough of my preliminaries, and I might have a couple more before we end. So if it's okay, I'm going to share my screen. Again, Heather got me all prepped up. So I think this is going to work well. I do have one embedded video. If that don't work as well, don't worry about it. We're not lost in the sauce if I don't do it. It's just 50 more seconds of you all having some time back as opposed to listening to me or watching some of the crazy stuff that I'll put up on screen, right? So let's go with this. And hopefully you all can see this. Please say yes, you can. And if so, then I'm going to attempt to go to let's do this real quick. You see that annotate button that I'm hovering over right there? You all probably have played around with this for a little bit of time. They can't see it? Maybe not.
Nope, I think that's only on your end.
Is that only on my end?
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Ain't that terrible? Okay, that's okay. Don't worry about the annotate. We'll use our chat space to sort of talk through some of the things that we need to do. So
we all have reaction buttons though.
Okay, well, that'll work. That reaction buttons will be great. Thank you, Michelle, for
You're welcome.
for saying that.
It's at the bottom of your screen, everyone. When you see the chat, if you just keep going over to the right, you'll see a reactions button. So we can react that way if that's okay.
Got it. That would be excellent. So then when I get to that point, we'll sort of ask that. So the title of my talk here this morning is going to be Equity in Education, and really how do we create this comprehensive community-based approach to early childhood education and care. Let me be clear. I sort of gave you a little bit of my background. I do not come at this totally and completely from an early childhood educator perspective. I do approach this somewhat from a business aspect, from a community aspect. As Dr. Hannon introduced me, she did call me Reverend. I am an ordained minister. I serve at my church with my dad as our pastor. My grandmother was our first pastor. So I'm born and raised Toledo, right? So if there's one thing that I love, it's Toledo. And I love Toledo's people. And I've seen some of the ups and downs. I'm young, but I've still seen some of the ups and downs, and the stuff I haven't seen. I got a dad who's been here since he was 8 years old, 7 years old, and he's seen it because he's 84. And he's told me every story in the book that I can ever remember. I'm thinking about writing him a book, by the way, but there's so many stories. So I've seen a lot. And so part of the way in which my lens in looking at this is how we do it. So imagine with me, if you will, a community of children, right, which is represented by the children that you see on this screen. It's clip art, forgive me for that. But imagine, if you will, a community of children who are surrounded by and have access to childcare providers who are serving with high quality provision of care, high quality education, and the children have equitable, affordable access to that care. Imagine with me, if you will, those childcare providers being able to access community resources, partnerships with folks all across community in order to serve those same children. And if you think about putting those two together and you think about those groups, our health and human service agencies, our childcare providers, our educators, all of them then partnering, and I emphasize that word partnering, with parents and families who are caring for their children, obviously in ways. I personally believe it is this nexus of space right here in the center is when all of us come collectively together. I'm just throwing it out here. Imagine a community that did this extremely well. Imagine a community that could get out of their own silos and say, you know what? I'm pouring everything I got into these children to serve them in the best way possible. Well, guess what? I believe we are creeping towards that. And I believe we're moving very fast in that direction because of the work that all of you provide on a day-to-day basis. So today, a few of the learning objectives, just to remind everybody, because I do realize there's some CEUs out here. A few of the learning objectives for today is to apply collaborative practices within the ECE sector to foster better outcomes for children. And I emphasize the all children. Another learning objective is to integrate proven techniques for family engagement within their center environments. And then thirdly, to recognize effective methods for creating equitable education experiences for young children. I highlighted the beginning letters of each of those objectives because I believe that this is literally the air we breathe. If we can really work together to create this space, our children will be able to breathe and be able to breathe clean air in order to make these things happen. So those are my learning objectives. Hopefully I hit them all today. It's my plan to do so as we walk through this. But think about this. I think everybody knows what this is. This is a zip code, right? And so this is 43604 because it's literally where I'm sitting right now because I'm in my office and my office is in downtown Toledo, which sits in the 04. But for all intents and purposes, these are probably 5 of the most important digits in a person's life. Where you live, the zip code in which you live, or the zip code in which you were born, the zip code in which you were raised, has massive reverberations across a person's entire life. And so when you think about the zip code and how much it matters in a couple different ways. One is related to life expectancy. And there are significant life expectancy gaps that exist across the country. But when you think about cities, these numbers that I presented to you right here are specific cities and the life expectancy gap within those cities. So from one zip code with the lowest life expectancy to another zip code with the highest life expectancy, you see the gap that is here. Notice with me, if you will, these Ohio cities that are right here. Toledo in and of itself, there's a 19-year life expectancy gap from the zip code with the lowest, which is 43604, right around 43604 in that neighborhood, which is where I physically live. Not only is my office here, but I live in the 04. I stay right on Division in that neck of the woods, Division in Indiana. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump for me to get downtown. But if you go west in our town in Toledo and you head out towards Sylvania, so on and so forth, no offense to any Sylvanians on here, but that has the highest life expectancy based on zip code. But there is a 19-year gap. How do we address that gap and do 2 things? Ensure that those with the lower life expectancies can live a little bit longer, expect to live a little bit longer. And I believe one of the crucial components of that is education. A few other details that I think I need to share with you. If you think about income in Toledo, around 40% of our young children are living below the poverty line. I know this is preaching to the choir for most of you because you already understand this, but I just felt like it was important to level set for today. If you think about where we are, because we're talking about early childhood ed, if you think about KRA scores, the heat map that I placed here is placed in a way that says, hey, this is the city of Toledo, map of the city of Toledo. The darker the color, the lower the KRA scores, indicating the higher the need. One would say, well, look, downtown Toledo, that neck of the woods in there, which is sort of core in our city, seems to be doing a little bit better. You're absolutely right, because we've poured in over time a lot of resources into particular areas, whether that's through community-based providers or through our school district, Toledo Public Schools, through Head Start, and other things we've been able to target. But my thought process is why isn't all of this a lighter shade? What can we do to get there to ensure that our children are walking into kindergarten ready to learn, but that means they've got to get exposed to these early education opportunities in a way that is accessible and affordable for them. So we know that the need exists across Toledo. And then you think about the health component of this. So background ways, I've worked at a health system for about 16, 17 years prior to digging directly into this work. And so infant mortality is a really big deal, right? Moms who deliver low birth weight babies, and you see all the stats there. I'm not going to read them. But we know what happens when our children do not get off to a strong start in life, and if they don't get a strong educational component in that early space, what that then turns into over time. And so these things are critically important as we think about it. And oh, by the way, COVID-19 is real. And so I do want to pause real quick here. Elisa mentioned it earlier, and I know we're all thinking about it, so I don't want to dig too deep here, but our hearts and thoughts are with the Catholic Club family and with Paul's family. And it just reiterates and underscores how very serious COVID-19 is. I don't approach this by looking at it and saying, oh, we got to be afraid in a certain kind of way, but there's a level of cautiousness that I think is important. But we now have to look at what are the impacts of having 18 months of COVID with us over this time. What has happened to our children? How have they been impacted, not only educationally, but how have they been impacted from a social and emotional perspective? And then even deeper than that, how have our teachers and our educators and our families and all the folks that wrap around this space, how have they been impacted by the COVID-19 virus, but also how COVID-19 has made us have to adjust our lives? I'll be real honest with you. I would have had a ball being in a room with y'all today. And I understand the reason why, right? So I'm not crazy to say, oh, they should have done it in person, but I would have loved to be in person with you today. But I understand what COVID has done and why it is that we're able to do this virtually. But there are some benefits, right? Because now everybody's learned how to Zoom, maybe not perfectly, but we've all learned how to do it so we can connect in different ways. But COVID-19 is a very real process. Couple all of that together. It then leads me into a discussion to talk about how do we address the equity issues in our community. Let me be real clear. There is a stark difference between equality, equity, and justice. And I just want to take these next couple slides to sort of walk through this. I think you all probably have seen a slide similar to this if you haven't seen this exact one, right? So in the other part of my life, I'm a diversity practitioner. I've taught this stuff around the country on staff for American Hospital Association, and we do a certificate of diversity and management program. So I've taught this stuff on a regular. You all know that equality means that everyone's getting the same thing. It's equal treatment. Everybody gets the same. It means sameness. Equity, however, means fairness. And this is what's important, is how do we get to the spot where all of our children and our families are getting the support that they need, how they need it, at the space where we're meeting them in that way. And then, oh, by the way, we've added this third component, which I really like, is the conversation around justice. When you look at these two, the first two, equality and equity, there's a wooden fence in the way. So it's blocking me from seeing anything if I don't have the supports necessary to participate. So the chain link fence allows me to see through the fence, participate in the game. Some people will argue, well, I don't want a fence. I'm of the belief that sometimes you need a fence because there's little things like privacy, FERPA, HIPAA, I can keep going, right? You need some levels of boundaries because I can't just walk in and get access to a kid. I need the doors locked. I need there to be a process. I need background checks. I need all those different things. And so this last component on this slide of justice allows us to really address what was the cause of the inequity and what caused there to be the need for the boxes. The cause for the need of the boxes, right, is the wooden fence. And that wooden fence can be seen in different ways. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. And so part of my conversation today is really driving around this equity discussion because it is so critical, right? Implicit bias, we've all talked about this before, and I think we know what it means. And I'm not going to read through each of these points on this slide, but how do we ensure that we're addressing our own implicit bias or our own biases that we have? Let me be very clear. Every single person on this call, every single person walking in life has bias. To have bias does not mean you are racist. And so let me be real clear, because some people have conflated this conversation a little bit too much, in my own personal opinion. Racism is real and racism exists. But one of the things that I consistently say, and I say this without fear of contradiction, if everything is racist, nothing is. And so we have to be very careful about what we call racist, but we also have to be very careful about checking our own biases at the door. When we have, when we don't do that, the associations that we develop early in life then impact how we then play out life going forward, which is why teaching our children at an early age and being able to do it in a culturally competent way that is equitable and all those different things and culturally relevant is so important, because we're able to teach our children at the early stages what these things really look like. And then the impacts of the other exposures throughout life, right, can be mitigated, because we know between media and social media and all those different things, we're fed information on a regular basis. And so I wanted to just make sure that I covered this space and a few things that you can get. And I'll make sure that Heather has this so she can share this out. This is a link for those of you that may not have seen Harvard's implicit association test. We've put that there so you can do it. So before I go further, I'm going to see if this video works. If you can't hear it, I get it. Don't worry about it. I'll stop it. But I'll keep my screen up so that we can see what this does. So let's see where this goes. See how we get here. So
John, when you share a video, there's a little box that says share the audio before you click play. So when you go to share it, so that should pop up for you.
So I did not see it. So
Okay.
Did you guys hear anything?
No, we don't see your,
You
we don't
can't
see
see
the
that
video.
piece of my screen. That's what that is.
I think if you stop sharing and then reshare by clicking the button and on the video, it'll be there.
yes.
Ding, ding, ding. You guys are smart. So let's do this. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
And as long as you click that button, you'll be good.
I'm not sure if I did the video piece, but let's just try it, see what it does.
Yep. Yep, we can
We
hear.
can hear it.
Sweet. I'm gonna skip the ad because none of us need that.
This is an awareness test. How many times does the team in white pass the ball? You answered 13 passes, you are correct. But did you see the moonwalking gorilla?
Oh my God.
I did.
Yes.
So I'm gonna stop sharing that. And then I'm gonna come back to this my other screen and what I want you to do, see. All right, can you see all that? Use your reaction button, and folks just pop on there a little heart or some kind of emoji, thumbs up emoji if you saw the dancing gorilla on the first time. If you saw the dancing gorilla the first time, pop it up. Some of you may have seen this video before. You may have. Pop it there. Yeah. I don't see a ton of thumbs up. So here's the purpose with that. And I saw a raised hand. Mindy, do you have a question? Or she might have just been using that to say she saw the dancing gorilla. So I use.
Sorry, I was using it for the dancing gorilla.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss you. So I show this because oftentimes that last statement that they made, you miss things that you're not looking for. And I believe that is critically important in this work that we're doing. because some of the things that we don't see, especially with working with our children, if we're not looking for it, especially when you start talking about equity and how we're engaging and things like my next slide, which I'll show, sometimes we're not really looking for it. And we'll say, hey, I'm just doing the work and I'm really going out here doing it. And we might miss some things that are being challenged or that are challenges for our children and our families. And so it's really important as we navigate our way through how we do all of that work. So just talk a little bit about still dealing with this whole equity conversation and how we navigate through it. Things like structural racism issues. And these are things that are connected directly to things that we have seen across time as being tied to institutional or structural racism. If you view things through this lens or you pass things through this lens, you end up realizing that in education, and I can use this framework for almost any industry, whether it's healthcare, business, whatever it is, oftentimes the outcomes, because of the impact, if not abated, of things like structural racism, of things like biases and discrimination and all those things, what we end up seeing is potential for higher suspension rate, poor reading scores, poor math scores at the 8th grade level, and lower kindergarten readiness scores. And so it's critically important that we take time to understand what these all are. So before I move forward into the next piece of this, and you can read that quote there, take a minute to put in the chat for me real quick, just sort of what you're feeling. I know that there is a lot going on in our community. There's a lot going on across the country. And especially over the last 18 months, 19 months or so with COVID and with all the things that have happened around social justice issues, things of that nature. But drop into the chat one word that describes how you're feeling. And I'll give you just about 15, 20 seconds to do that. Drop in the chat one word that describes how you're feeling in the midst of this. Wow, underwater, overwhelmed, stressed, discouraged. I see hope and despair, which is phenomenal. Hopeful, frustrated, nervous, drowning, defeated, political issues versus human issues, right? Sad but hopeful, not enough resources, tired but hopeful, challenged. So when you think about this, determined, I love that one. When you think about how you're feeling and you think about all these pieces, and so what I walked through on the front end of it is really where we are, these issues of equity, how we navigate through, somebody said hurt, how we navigate through these things. We have to now, as a sector, right, begin to look at how do we address this collectively. I personally believe gone should be the day of trying to fight these battles in silos. And I know how it is. I know we get hunkered down and say, I got to focus and I got to go get this done. I know it. I get it. I feel it. I do it myself at times. But I think now more than ever, we got to come up with ways as to how we work this together. And that really is the purpose of Hope Toledo. And so our mission is to support and ensure high quality education from birth to career, right? And we put in here preschool, post-secondary, trade schools. So a lot of you heard about our work around the promise and saw the announcement that we made with Pete Cadence well over a year ago. And I'm going to talk about that very little bit at the end. But our mission is to support and ensure high quality education for every young person in the city of Toledo to create generational economic change for the betterment of our families and community. Let me highlight the two key words for me out of this: support and ensure. Hope is not here to take anybody's place. Hope is not here to go steal a piece of the pie. But what we're here to do is to really work collectively together and create this collaborative vision. And I won't even say create a collaborative vision, but execute on a collaborative vision. You all are working this and have been doing this for such a long time. Nobody's coming along. I tell our team all the time that I see this as a big old sandbox, right? That our kids play in. Hope may have a sandbox and we may be saying to folks, hey, come on and play in our sandbox. If you got sand that you want to bring to that box, come on and bring it. I'm not telling you to go tear up your own sandbox. I'm not telling you to throw your sand away. I'm not telling you to get rid of your toys. What I'm saying is let's find a way that we can collectively play in a sandbox. And when you go back to yours, which you may need to do the work that you're doing, but we can all work together. And if you need a little sand from our box, take it by all means. If you need a toy from our box, take it by all means, because what we're here to do is to support high quality education across the board for all of our children. And the goal, especially in the pre-K space, and several of you have participated with us in this conversation, is to ensure kindergarten readiness and subsequent successful school performance for all of Toledo's children. I believe we can get there. And there is no doubt in my mind that we can get there. And it takes a collective approach in order to do that. So I'm just going to highlight a few objectives that we have, and then I'm going to dig into some of the quality supports, and then I'll be out of your way. The first, all of these are important to us, but we believe that we've got to provide access, right, to those that are traditionally underserved, but also to all populations, right? So there are some families who still need help. Let's just be honest. I was raised in, I think we were poor. My parents didn't really let us know that, right? Because, somehow or another, dad kept doing what he needed to do, and we turned out okay, right? But at the end of the day, there's folks who may not be able to access certain places for education, and they may not be able to access certain resources that could be available to them. How do we make sure that we serve them? So providing access is critical. We also want to work with providers to ensure fiscal soundness. Some of you have heard this discussion around Iron Triangle, right? How do we ensure that we staff up enrollment? How do we optimize enrollment? How do we maximize fee collection? Those three things working together to ensure strength in our provider community. Yes, family, COVID has really laid bare some major issues for a lot of our community-based providers and a lot of our service agencies, and we have to navigate through that. This third bullet is so important to me, and I can't highlight it enough. So any teachers on this call know that I love y'all. Teachers need to be competitively and fairly compensated. That was a pregnant pause on purpose. That must happen. And I'll be real honest, and I'll talk about this in just a few minutes. Across our sector, you all know that don't necessarily happen. And for Hope Toledo, one of our main objectives is to ensure that we can start moving in that direction and support our entities, our centers, to be able to provide those fair wages, those competitive wages in a way that helps their business, but more importantly, helps our children. Teachers also need to get professional training. The work that, as I mentioned before, that Dr. Hannon does, this coordinating committee, and others that are doing work to provide professional development and coaching and planning time and all that is so important. Y'all know how important it is for lower ratios. Y'all know how important it is for curriculum-rich programming that is, in essence, full year kind of stuff is a really big deal. A few more objectives. We want to work, Hope does, work with 3, 4, and 5-star providers to assist them as they're working up the quality scale, but we don't just leave it at that, family. We also want to make sure that we're working with 1 and 2-star providers, because at the end of the day, I'm not delusional. I have been in buildings that are 1-star providers that have such a phenomenal atmosphere, a phenomenal environment of high quality, but according to our state step up to quality scale, they have to do a few things in order to get through that. And we know that we want to encourage more providers, more centers to move along that process. For lack of a better phrase, and y'all shoot me later, y'all know sometimes I say stuff and I get in trouble for it. Step up to quality is the name of the game right now, right? That's what's there. That's what we measure ourselves by. But let's not be delusional and think that just because a center is a 2-star does not mean that they're not providing quality service to the children that they are seeing every day. Do we need to help and work with them so that we can assist them as they're working on their continued sustainability plans and all that? Heck yeah, because we want them to stay open, because they're serving such a huge need. And so Hope comes along to do that. Health and Human Service Agency partnerships, I'll talk about that before I'm done. But all of you on this call that are in that space are so important. And then parents, y'all, we can't underscore that enough, how important working with them and working with families are inside of the mix. And then we know as an organization for Hope, we've got to govern ourselves accordingly. So these next few minutes, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. And if y'all got questions, just raise your hand. You can interrupt me. Is to really talk about some of these quality support strategies. I listed them in our objectives, but here are some of the things that we view, and I know you all view as huge as it relates to quality support, whether it's reduced ratios, teacher qualifications, culturally competent curriculum, coaching for our teachers, pre-K to kindergarten transition. Family, let's be real. We got to make sure that these kids not only get a great experience in pre-kindergarten, but they got to get a great experience in kindergarten and beyond, because all this work goes to naught, right, if we're not supporting throughout that process. I personally believe that our K-12 environment does a good job in the work that they do, whether that's Toledo Public, Washington Local, or even y'all public school folks, don't shoot me, even our privates and parochials, right? They do great work in educating. We have a great educational space in Toledo. We've got to do we got to continue to increase the work of transitioning our children and our families into that space so we see the outcomes that we want later in life. And then, by the way, we got to make sure that we provide some business coaching and all that. And to that end about business coaching, one of the things that we're really working on now, we're doing this in partnership with the YWCA, Child Care Resource and Referral, and Toledo Early Learning Coalition. We submitted a proposal to the Greater Toledo Community Foundation, and we're funded for the next 3 years to provide shared service in this community. How important is that on the business side of the house? And here's some of the resources that are there. Business services. The YW has a sub pool that they've pulled together and are working to build technical assistance, back office work, professional development, all these different things that are provided. And you all know this, right? Because you use these resources. But now we are working collectively together, collaboratively, so that we can increase that service provision and make sure that the sustainability, the technology that is needed to ultimately serve more children and do it in a high level way is there. So that's one strategy. Family engagement. We know if we can increase parents' engagement, we can see an increase in that daily attendance. And y'all know that's important, not just for dollars in reimbursement, even though it is, but it's also important because the families now build this space of me showing up, participating with my kids. And then I do this throughout my lifetime, not just in the pre-K space. And so here's a few strategies. And by all means, I really want you to either drop in the chat or raise your hand or unmute. Tell me some of your practices that you have around this work of family engagement. What are some of the things that you are doing that you have found that work really well? Either hit it in the chat or you can unmute and share it for just a second. Anybody can jump in and just share a strategy or two that you have found that have been successful in engaging families to work with their partner with their children.
And John, I'm watching the chat and I'll let you know if there's anything
Cool.
there.
Do that. Bi-weekly follow-up calls. I saw that.
Yep.
What else? Anything else that's there? Dr. Hannon will read them.
I'm assuming that home visitors, community health workers, and other early education providers are in the same category as childcare providers for this?
Yes. Yep.
So Parent Cafe with a gift basket for participating.
Nice. And family, let's just say this out loud. I know we always say, man, I don't know, do we have to give them food all the time? Food does work sometimes, right? I mean, it's a way, especially in the environment that we're in now, right? It's difficult to get to spaces. And so that's a big one. What else? Anything else? I'll just take a couple more, another minute on this, and then I'll keep walking. But any other practices that you found that work?
Family socialization activities, fun times to get together. And then when needed, I ask parents if they can do me a favor and please attend a meeting or assist with whatever's needed.
Got it. That's good.
About relationship building, two-way street. Someone else said allowing families to have a say in the care of their children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I use that word partner at the very beginning, family, because that's what we're doing. So keep dropping them in the chat, because I know we're recording this, so you guys can come back and visit this as you're walking your way through. But let me just list out some things, because you've already sort of tapped on some of these. I lead with mutual respect, relational trust, and authenticity. I cannot say this enough. Folks want to know that you actually, what Maya Angelou put it this way, people care less about what you say until they know that you care. I paraphrase that. That's not the exact quote. But at the end of the day, how we engage in this space and make it a two-way street, which Dr. Hannon mentioned or read off of one of the things that you all shared, that's crucially important. And I know you all know that as we're navigating through. Watch this. Being culturally aware and having culturally responsive strategies is so critical, because there are challenges that families face and our ability to meet them where they are. So you've got a wide cadre of children that are going to come through your doors. How do we meet them where they are with culturally responsive strategies inside of the space? And oh, by the way, as we talk about equity and as we talk about doing this, it's not just race and gender, family. We're talking about ability. We're talking about children who may have disabilities coming into our centers. How do we make sure that they feel a mutual respect and are treated in an authentic way? Accurately identifying barriers is crucial. How do we ensure that we identify those barriers that exist? And those barriers could be a myriad of things, right? We know that there's a digital divide, right? How do we make sure we address that barrier? So we say, hey, I'm gonna send you an email with X, and if they don't have access to go check their email on a regular, we may miss that connection. And it's little things to make sure that we've identified the barriers and found ways to close gaps where necessary. I believe that asking, which is part of one of the things that you all said, engaging them in the care of their child, asking families what's going on. So I say surveying. Let me be clear. Most people don't want to be poked and prodded. So at the end of the day, it's how you survey, and there's a whole lot of ways you can get questions answered. And it doesn't have to be go fill out this survey online to give us X, Y, and Z. You can just sit with them as they're picking up their child and ask questions, and you can get the answers to them. And we found some unique ways in order to do it, always utilizing an equity lens. Again, let me go back to that, because I can't say it enough. This and this is not just about race. This is not just about color. This is about all these other components that play into the mix. And so we've got families that have to deal with various ability issues that are there. How do we address that in the classroom? We've got other issues that arise from a mental health standpoint. How are we ensuring that we're addressing those needs with children that come and may struggle with ADD or ADHD and other types of things? How do we work with them so that we meet them where they are and allow them to learn in a way? And then things like home visitation, you all have said all these things. That's why I asked you first, because y'all are the experts in the space, right? And then exercising and using various tools for communication. I know there are tools out there that allow for texting of information and sharing stuff back and forth and being able to use those in your center. And we at Hope Toledo are looking at the ways in which we can support that process. Not going to hang out here on the ratios. Y'all know how important that is, right? The lower the ratio, the better. Here at Hope Toledo, we're focusing on a 1-to-10 ratio. I know Head to Start has something around a 1-to-8 ratio, particularly in the pre-K space. But we know how critical it is that we deal with that. Again, I raised the discussion around ensuring that we are fairly compensating our teachers. Let me tell you one of the reasons why. To recruit a diverse teaching population, we've got to make sure that we paying teachers, what they need to be paid. Now, let me be clear. I was married to a teacher for 14 years, and we have a wonderful relationship because we have 3 children and we co-parent really well together, right? And I'm grateful to God for that space. So we talk almost every day, and listening to her stories, having lived it, and then listening to her stories as a teacher, and she teaches in the K-8 space. Teachers don't get paid what they need to get paid, period. And so I say that out loud without fear of contradiction, right? Because I know what we brought into our house. But in this sector, seems like it's even worse, and we got to do a better job of making sure we address it. And we know how it plagues, especially from a benefits perspective and other things. And this impacts turnover, and it impacts us here in Toledo directly. So that last bullet point is where I was getting to. We got to collectively value our most vital human resource, and that is our teachers. And I'll say that every day of the week. Providing coaching for them, I'm not going to hang out long there, but we know that the coaching and the professional development is the glue that allows us to connect our training to our practice. And so sessions like these and others are crucial, and we've got to work with our centers so that we build in the time so that they have the appropriate planning time to be able to get it done. Why is this important? And I'm almost done, just a couple more slides, and then would love to answer questions. The mental health space is crucial. So I'm teeing this up because we've been talking with a handful of people here at Hope Toledo. We've been talking with folks as to how we help providers work their way through. Some of you are already doing this and you're working through it. You all have heard the term ACEs, right? And I think all of you have, adverse childhood experiences, right? And there's a pair of ACEs that I put in this graphic there that I lifted from the website. Not only do we have adverse childhood experiences, but we have adverse community environments. And so the space in which we live, just went through a training earlier this week and helped to facilitate an afternoon session that was around groundwater done by the Racial Equity Institute. And so the groundwater in which we live, right, feeds into the various spaces of our lives. And so the roots in which this tree sits, right, then spurs out, and those branches end up becoming some of these things. And we know what ACEs are, but we also know, according to a CDC study, which was done between CDC and Kaiser Permanente back in the mid-90s, there is a link, a direct link between the experience of an adverse childhood space and the higher likelihood of negative health and behavior outcomes. There is a direct link. The more ACEs a child experiences, so all the stuff that we listed over here, emotional abuse, domestic violence, homelessness, various things, the more exposure they have there, the more negative outcomes will be. And so we've got to work collectively together to really begin to deal in things like trauma-informed care and other things of that nature so that we can really navigate how those pieces come together. Why is all this important? The other end of our stick is the post-secondary side. If children don't get a strong start, they don't end up with a strong future. They're not able to go to work and work in a gainfully employed space that allows them to be a tax producer, not a tax consumer. Right now in Toledo, about approximately 18% of our adults have a bachelor's degree or higher, that level of attainment. Now, I'm not saying a 4-year degree is the end all be all of anything, right? I believe between trade school and 2-year school, our community colleges, there's so much positives that go on there. But we know that the more education you get, the more opportunities you have to learn and earn across your lifetime. So what we're doing with the Promise, and I say this very quickly and briefly, is we're working with 2 classes right now at Scott High School. You guys heard that announcement. And we're working with approximately 120 or so kids, 115 to 120 kids. We're also working in a 2-generational fashion with about 30 of their parents in order to provide tuition, room, board, books, fees where applicable after any financial aid. So these young people and one of their parents or legal guardians can go pursue post-secondary education and do so without acquiring and incurring student loan debt. We think it's huge because we think it opens the door, but I also know that if they don't get a strong start, and we're seeing it, so children that did not have a strong educational start struggle at this point in their life. They made it through K-12, but they end up struggling. And so for us, it is a full cradle to career conversation. And it drives towards this discussion around psychological well-being and psychological safety. And we've got to be able to deal with this because our children that are 16, 17, 18, 19 are dealing with psychological safety issues that started when they were 2, 3, 4. And you all know this again. I know I'm preaching to the choir. So the vision, told you earlier, what if we wrapped our children? Now I'm saying if we wrapped our children, and now we get to our kids that are going into post-secondary and beyond, if we wrapped them with solid K-12, if K-12 partnered real well with post-secondary, and then that partnership then dovetailed with employers, we would be able to see a community that now has a wonderful place to work. Folks are engaged in the process, doing what it is that they can do every single day. That's our vision. That's why we do this work at Hope Toledo. I would encourage you to pick up this book. I put it in every presentation that I do, especially to groups like this. Good to Great is a great book, but there's also Good to Great for the social sectors. And these last couple slides talk about the incomplete leader. If you've never read a Harvard Business Review article, I would encourage you to read this one. If you never read any other Harvard Business Review article, read this one, because this one talks about how you engage in the space and use things like sense making, understanding the context of your business. So for all of our childcare providers and all of our folks that are working inside of community, whether it's a nonprofit or not, you've got something that you're operating. How do you understand the context of your business? How do you relate well and build relationships? How do you create a compelling vision for the future? And that's all we're doing at Hope Toledo is making sure that there is a vision for the future, but then developing ways for us to achieve it. We've got to work together to get there. So I encourage you, do a couple things. Look up. Y'all already know who I am. This is my context, right? I take time to go look up and focus there, whether you have a particular religious belief or not even walking that road, but take some time to get away from what's down here and just go sit somewhere and look, right? You can just observe nature and get some relief inside of your space. Look up, but also look within. Do some introspection, dig deep, find out where you are, especially during this season, right? But don't just look up and look within, look around. See what's happening inside of our environment. And I think once you look up, look within, and look around, we can collectively look ahead. And I believe the future is bright. I believe the time is now for us to make this thing happen here in Toledo, and collectively we can do it. One of the things that we're working on is standing up a Birth to Five consortium, and we're going to be calling on you all to join inside of that space, because collectively we can make the change happen. Dr. King said the ultimate tragedy is not oppression and cruelty from the bad people, but it is the silence over that bad stuff by the good people. You all have a voice. Use your voice. Use your voice to advocate, not just for the kids, but for their families, but also for yourselves. Use your voice so that we can really navigate and get things done in our community. This is just some propaganda. Go check us out at hope-toledo.org. This is the team, and we wouldn't be getting this work done if it wasn't for a great team. And so Shauna's on here. Elisa, you've already heard her, and you'll hear her later today. And Tracy is working with us in our team. And so it's really exciting to be able to do this work. Thank you for having me today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If you all have questions, I think I left you a few minutes to navigate through it. So if you got questions, by all means, I'm here to answer.
Thank you so much, Reverend Jones. You started touching on the one I was going to ask, which is the role of advocacy in all of this. So could you say a little bit more about what each of us can do and what Hope Toledo is specifically doing around advocating for everything you just described?
Absolutely. So there's a couple things. So number one, the power of the pen is phenomenal, right? And so we've got legislators that sit, whether that's locally or statewide or even on the federal level. You all have been paying attention, I'm sure, to some level of news. On the federal level, there's a large discussion going on about early childhood ed. We know how that is impacting even on the statewide level. Just this week on the statewide level, one of the committees focused on early childhood ed made a proposal to take some of this CARES Act funding, about 160 million of it, and throw it back out there for community-based providers and other folks to gain access to it. Now more than ever, we must advocate on an individual level. I'm all for it. We need to do it on an individual level, but we also need to do it collectively. Toledo, for too many opportunities, Toledo allows for opportunities to pass us because we don't find ways to effectively advocate collectively. And so, Dr. Hannon, it's a great question. We know that we do great work, right? There's great work all across our community. We've got to start threading that great work together and then telling people about the great work and really pushing that needle, writing our legislators, but not just writing our legislators, putting together the processes locally that then say we're prepared to receive that funding. So I wrote an op-ed with the Children's Funding Project not too long ago. And what we said is there's a lot of rescue plan funding, right, that's out there. So we made an announcement to expand our demonstration project. Our demonstration project is working with 10 different providers, and you can go to our website and find out more information there. Some of those providers are on this call. I see Cheryl on here from East Toledo Family Center, but we've got All for Kids, we've got Believe Academy, we've got the Catholic Club, we've got Children's Discovery Center, we've got East Toledo Family Center, we've got Learning Ladder, we've got Quality Time, we've got Canards, we've got, which is Carnar's Child Development Center. We've got Toledo Day Nursery. We've got then those 10 folks. Because we put that together, we then really had hard conversations with both the city and the county and said, how can we put this together and use some of the rescue plan dollars to expand the work? Our goal is to serve through the demonstration approximately 200 kids. That ain't nowhere near what needs to be done to address the need in our community. But because of the right now proposed, I don't count chickens before they hatch. City council got to vote. Commissioners got to vote. I don't count it before it hatches, but we had this discussion and now we are collectively joining together those dollars so we can expand the access. And oh, by the way, ProMedica came along as one of our corporate supporters to say, we're going to put dollars into this mix as well. And by ProMedica being at the table, the city, the county, we've amassed a large chunk of funds that then allowed us to go and talk to Toledo Public and say, how can you take the dollars that you have and expand what you're doing internally? Hope Toledo's not asking for you to write a check to us, but let's expand the work that you're doing, increase those slots for early childhood. And in talking with Superintendent Dr. Allen, I'm not sure if she's on here, but she's another phenomenal partner inside of this work. In talking with them, we were able to announce a collective $20 million investment in our children that we're going to see over the next couple of years, right? That ain't near enough to get this work done. We've got to do this on a broad scale. So the advocacy work starts not just to get funding, but it also starts by ensuring that the resources and the various supports that are needed from these different varying factions in community, and I call them factions because we can bring them together, but we've got to speak collectively as one voice. So if we see our children are struggling with mental health issues and learning loss and all that stuff, we got to speak with one voice. And when we begin to do that, folks then pay attention. And by doing that, I think this Birth to Five consortium will help us draw that, because we're going to be able to pull people together from Pathways Hub and all these other spaces, Lucas County Family Council, all these folks, pulling everybody to the table so we can collectively advocate. I hope I answered your question, Doc.
You did, thank you.
What else, family?
Wondering if there's any last question that anybody would like to unmute and ask or pop in the chat real quick. All right.
So real quick, if I can just say one more thing as my last little comments. Again, I highlight saying thank you. One person I didn't add as part of our Hope team. She's new to the Hope team. That's Nancy Oakley. I see her face out there somewhere. I thought I saw her name. She's going to be coming on board, helping us out with some things around coaching and various things. So I'm thrilled by the team that we're being able to pull together at Hope. But more importantly, I'm thrilled by the opportunity to partner with all of you. Like I said, I'm a business guy. I'm a community guy. I'm a minister. So I preach on Sundays, right? I can't say I'm a teacher, but I would like to think I try to educate people on the side. I don't have a degree, so y'all don't come find me because of that. But I like to think that I do that. I appreciate the welcome into this sector. Thank you so much for having me today. Keep doing the great work you're doing. In my biblical space, the Bible says the race ain't given to the swift or the strong, right? But those that endure to the end. Keep pushing to the end, right? We got to get this work done. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your work, for your leadership, and for being with us today. Thanks so much. So I'm going to send it back to Heather to take us into the break. And we've got some great comments. If you have a second, Reverend Jones take a look at all the appreciations in the chat.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Very inspirational. Great to have all that wonderful information. Now we are going to take a 15-minute break, and we are right on schedule. So it is 9:59. We're going to start again at 10:15. When you start again at 10:15, you have the option. Go back to that interactive agenda. We have option number 1 is the Ready Child, and that will be Elisa Huss-Hage as our guest speaker. And option number 2 is the Ready School, and we have speakers from Toledo Public Schools talking to us there. So make your choice and use the links in the interactive agenda to get into whichever room you need to be in. See everybody back at 10:15.